He tested negative for malaria. 48 hours later, he was dead. A fatal misdiagnosis. A negative test result should be a relief, but for a 32-year-old traveler named Mark, it was actually a death sentence. If you think a doctor telling you that you are clear means you are actually safe, you need to hear exactly what happened in this hospital room, because it is happening more often than you think. Mark had just returned from a 3-week trip where he followed every safety protocol. Yet he ended up becoming a victim of a medical blind spot that is currently spreading across the globe. This isn't just a story about a tragic mistake. It is an urgent warning about a flaw in our modern medical testing that is catching even the best doctors off guard. The invisible killer. When Mark landed back home, he felt a slight chill and a bit of a headache. Most people would call that jet lag or a common cold. But Mark was smart. He knew he had been in a high-risk area for malaria, so he went straight to the emergency room. He told the triage nurse exactly where he had been. The hospital did exactly what they were trained to do. They pulled out a rapid diagnostic test, often called an RDT. This is a small plastic device, much like a pregnancy test, that looks for specific proteins in a drop of blood. Within 15 minutes, the results were in. It was a clear negative. No malaria. The doctors told Mark he likely had a rough viral flu, gave him some fluids, and sent him home to rest. But while Mark slept, his body was being invaded. You see, there is a massive problem emerging in the world of infectious diseases that many local clinics aren't prepared for. It is called the HRP2 gene deletion. For decades, our best rapid tests have looked for a specific protein called histidine-rich protein 2. However, the malaria parasite is evolving. In a terrifying display of natural selection, the parasites are actually deleting the genes that produce this protein. They are essentially wearing a suit of armor that makes them invisible to our fastest tests. If the protein isn't there, the test stays blank, even if the patient's blood is literally crawling with millions of parasites. Mark wasn't clear. He was a ticking time bomb. The final 48 hours. By the next morning, Mark's fever hit 105 degrees. He started vomiting and became confused, unable to remember his own phone number. His wife found him slumped in the bathroom, his skin turning a ghostly shade of yellow. This is jaundice, a sign that the liver is failing and red blood cells are exploding by the millions. When he was rushed back to the hospital, his kidneys were already shutting down. The invisible parasites had clogged his tiny blood vessels, cutting off oxygen to his brain and vital organs. By the time a specialist decided to ignore the rapid test and look at Mark's blood under an old-fashioned microscope, it was too late. They saw the truth immediately. 15% of his red blood cells were infected with Plasmodium falciparum, the deadliest form of the disease. Despite their best efforts to restart his organs, Mark passed away just 48 hours after being told he was healthy. How to protect yourself. This tragedy carries a vital lesson for the general public and medical professionals alike. If you have traveled to a tropical region and you have a fever, a negative rapid test is never the final word. You must demand what is called a thick and thin blood smear. This is where a human expert looks at your blood under a lens. It takes longer, and it requires more skill, but it is the only way to catch the ghost parasites that are currently outsmarting our technology. Never let a piece of plastic tell you that you are safe when your body is telling you something is wrong. To see our next deep dive into the hidden medical risks you need to know about, click the video on your screen right now.